Welcome back to the Sense of Life podcast. My name's Cody,
And I'm Joe.
and I almost introduced myself as Joe there.
I could tell by the way you said it.
So we're leaving that in.
Yeah. The
not
secret is that this is actually one guy doing two different voices and fucking it up.
Joe is just an AI I've created to keep myself not lonely.
No, this is you like doing two different voices like an impressionist and somehow being able to interrupt yourself like you just did right there.
Yes. Yeah. And carry on two different conversations where I'm like laughing and then talking at the same time.
Right, exactly.
It's really impressive, actually.
Yeah, that'd be the greatest psyop there ever was. Besides, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. Never mind.
Yeah, this goes on YouTube. We can't say that stuff anymore.
Yeah, I saw a thing on YouTube. This is just completely unrelated, but I saw a thing on YouTube the other day where someone had to censor like gameplay from a video game, and I was like, and it was because of like violence being shown in the game. It's like, really, like that's where we're at, and it was like Fallout 4 gameplay, and it was just like the silly dismemberment in that game. It's like, why do we have to like pixelate like cartoonish violence? It's so stupid, fucking retarded.
It's like that like R-worded thing. It's like great piece of shit.
Yeah, I hate that shit too. Another thing that I noticed as well was a person that was uploading Baldur's Gate 3 gameplay, and there are parts in that game where there are characters that are just casually, like, you know, they casually just got their tits out, you know? And the game just kind of treats it as like, you know, this is the human body, and like this is a person, and you know they happen to not have a shirt on.
Oh, it was in the game. Okay.
No, not the person playing the game. I mean the characters in the game. Jesus Christ!
I was like, what kind of Pornhub Twitch stream is this?
No, it was literally just like there was a scene where like these characters were like part of this ritual for this vampire character, and they weren't wearing shirts, and it was like the female characters had their fucking tits out, and it was like. I had this weird moment where I was like, this game is just treating this like matter-of-factly, like that it's just what it is, but like YouTube is like, oh, you gotta cover that, you gotta cover that up, and it's just, it's dumb, it's stupid. Anyway, we're talking about Drive.
This is the last of our Noirvember series. We're winding down into the winter season, as you can probably hear from my voice. I am stuffed up beyond belief.
That's right.
And Joe was under the weather last night, so we weren't able to get the recording done.
Yeah, this is recorded and uploaded the day after it was supposed to be because of that. And in the spirit of it being, you know, starting to enter the winter season, it also snowed here today, so that's cool.
It was just cold as fuck this morning for me, so I would have accepted the snow if it wasn't 14 degrees when I woke up. Drive. Anything else we want to get out of the way before we start?
Don't think so. I mean, just to clarify, we're talking about the movie 2011, directed by Nicolas Winding Refn, and the 2005 novel by James Sallis. So.
I think we'll probably start with a novel.
We did not read Driven, which is the sequel that he made post-movie, probably to capitalize on how big that movie kind of was critically. He was writing it at the same time, coincidentally, I don't know. But it came out like a year after the movie.
Yeah. I guess first thing is, what did you think of the book?
Well, I read the book in, I think, 2020. And I didn't like it then, and rereading it, I appreciated the style of it more this time, but I think, and I think the way its story is structured works for the book, but I can see why the movie restructured everything into a single coherent, you know, logical progression of events, as opposed to kind of almost little vignettes of Driver's life. I think one fits the noir style of a book more than a film, and personally, I like the plot of the movie better.
I agree. Yeah.
And I guess as far as like just comparing the stories, that's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff from the movie, and I think it was the screenwriter of the movie, Hassan something,
Hossein Amini.
Hussein Amini.
Hossein
I
Amini.
think he described the novel, kind of like a poem.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of see where he got that. It's very terse. It's very short. Like a lot of like the classic crime stuff. They were big fans of Hemingway,
Mm-hmm.
who's known for very short, terse kind of stuff. And at times, this kind of minimalism can be really effective, like with violence in James M. Cain, like we talked about this past month.
Yeah.
Um, at other times, I think it can sometimes be I think I heard friend of the pod, Skylar,
Yeah.
describe this kind of minimalism as underwritten at times,
Right.
instead of overwritten, and you just can sometimes kind of lose some of the emotional uh, connection to character and the situation with some of them. I have one example we'll get to later, but I figured we'd give a rundown of what happens in the book and if we can remember.
Yeah, I got a couple things from the book that I highlighted. So this will be the
Yeah.
first time where we've read a book where I actually have some quotes and to go alongside yours if we get to those.
Yes. Yeah. So the book, the the difference in plot between the book and the movie is, I guess you could say the movie has one.
Yeah, that is the difference. Is the movie is very much like the guy that did the screenplay for it did a very good job of like taking essential elements of like the theme of the book. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know how much of the plot that he wrote for the screenplay because I've not read it. It is like actually made it into the finished, film. I don't know if Refn kind of, directors will change things on the fly and kind of make it their own. So
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how much of that is owed to Amini or not, but I will give him praise for the adapting the book at all because it's
Yeah.
very non-linear. It's all over the place. It kind of like you will get glimpses into his past, and then there's every few chapters it returns to what is classified in the book as the present,
Yeah.
which is the kind of heist that becomes the focal point of what the movie is about. And
And
yeah,
yeah, an interesting thing I noticed with the book and the movie as separate things. The best parts of the book, I think, um, Refn and Amini make a good decision in cutting them for the movie.
yeah.
Which I think the best parts in the book are all of like the bullshit Hollywood stuff that he deals with.
Right, yeah. You
Like,
don't even really hear any dialogue from like a single Hollywood person in the movie, really.
yeah, there's the one scene of him doing that one stunt, and there's a camera crew, and that's your like only. I think it's mentioned in passing a couple times, but it's your only inkling or recognition visually that he's a Hollywood stuntman. That's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
But in the novel, that's like a key component of what's happening in his life, and the whole crime subplot is just kind of shows up randomly.
Yeah, and like the relationship he has with like his Hollywood writer friend and stuff
Yeah,
like that, and like there's a part near the end of the book where he's eventually just stopped taking calls from the Hollywood folks, like he doesn't give a shit about being a stunt driver anymore. And
yeah,
there's such a Hollywood like guy line it's like the last message that he gets from his friend that sets him up with gigs, where he says like, just lost your number, kid, or whatever. It's like that's very real dialogue right there.
yeah. The I liked I can't remember exactly where it is, but there is this interaction. I think he's thinking back in the past when he first moves out to L.A. and he meets this guy at uh, a diner or coffee shop. I don't think he's attempting to meet him, but he just sees him there and like introduces himself because he's still young and cares or whatever. And he is the the guy's kind of like an old producer. I think it might be the Albert Brooks character in the movie. It's this character in the novel. I'm not 100% sure. Or the Albert Brooks character might be a amalgamation character of a couple different characters.
Well, I'm pretty sure Albert Brooks's character is what the fuck was that character's name? There's Nino and his partner.
Nino's Ron Perlman.
Yeah, and what the hell was his name? Bernie Rose. The character of Bernie Rose is in both the movie and the book. Are you talking about the? It's like one of the earlier chapters where I think it's when he meets Shannon, who is Bryan Cranston's character in the movie, but they might as well be different people because this is the scene where he meets the guy and he tells him he's good at driving or whatever, and then he buys him a drink and a cheeseburger, and then he lets him crash at his place for like 2 months.
Something like that. And there's a line he has that's something like, he's like, why are you so sure of yourself or whatever? And I think Driver says like, I mean, I'm something to the effect of, I'm the only one that can be. And he's like the Hollywood guy, whether it's the Cranston character or the Albert Brooks character. Again, I can't fucking remember these names right now. My head's so clogged. He's like, well, you're gonna do pretty good in this town, kid, because that's the only way you can make it or whatever. Yeah, it was a cool moment. Is all I was going for there.
Yeah, there's some other neat elements as well that, again, were kind of abandoned. Like there's a part where he's talking with another stunt driver character, and it's like that. The thing about that guy was like he always mumbled, and you could hardly hear what he was saying. And like the way his dialogue is written is like, just like he says something unintelligible and he's like, what? And then he repeats it. It's like everything that you get this guy to say, he has to repeat. And then like later on during the part where the heist is a setup and they're being chased by another car, and he kind of plays chicken with the other car that's chasing them, and he hops in the back seat of the car right before the impact so that he won't, get fucking killed. He goes over to the other car, and it was like it was the guy that he was friends with. So it's like for some reason the other stunt driver he knew from Hollywood was also driving a car for the people that set him up in that heist. It was very weird. It was like it was almost like the reading equivalent of Blink and You'll Miss It.
There's a lot of those kind of moments in this book.
Yeah.
I actually had to like go back and reread like whole pages because I was like,
what the fuck?
Something happened. What just happened?
Yeah.
Like it's like whole like 30-minute passages in the movie are like aligned.
It is fucking crazy. The whole scene where in the movie where he kills Ron Perlman's character Nino is done on the first page of a chapter. It's like, we're here now. Oh, he killed him. Okay, he's dead.
Yeah.
The movie has like this whole build up where he like goes to the Hollywood lot and gets the rubber mask and like sits in his car waiting outside Nino's pizzeria. He like walks right up to the door, and they have that whole musical part with it's not a musical, but the part where they play music. And he like follows his car, and the whole dramatic drowning him on the beach scene. But in the book, it's like Nino went outside to get the newspaper. Driver shot him in the face. He didn't smell very good. Like there's literally a line. It's like he says, let me see if I can actually find it real quick.
It has something similar.
Oh shit.
I think I might actually have the exact one you're talking about. Yes, yeah, I do. I actually have something to say about this passage here.
He says, driver. So he kills Nino, and then he leaves like a pizza box because Nino runs a pizzeria. He leaves it on his corpse. It says, driver set the box with its large pepperoni, double cheese, no anchovies on Nino's chest. The pizza smelled good. Nino didn't. And that's like, that's how they end the part where it's like, oh yeah, he killed this guy.
Yeah, it's a 2-page chapter. It's chapter 31.
Yeah.
And at this point in the book was when I was getting a little bit annoyed with this kind of like super terse, like, oh, he's dead now kind of thing, and I don't feel anything for it. And because this is like how every death in this book is narrated.
Right.
And it's like...
Are you starting with as Nino bent to pick up the paper? Is that the part where you're starting
I'm just going to read the whole chapter. It's 2 pages long.
Sure, why not?
He took Nino down at 6 a.m. on a Monday. Weather report said it would climb to a balmy 82 degrees high, gentle clouds from the east, 40% chance of light rain later in the week. In slippers in a thin seersucker bathroom, Isaiah Paolozzi came out the front door of his Brentwood home, his mission twofold. Pick up this morning's LA Times from the drive, fire up the sprinklers, never mind that each burst from these sprinklers was water stolen from others. No other way you turned a desert into sculptured green lawns. Never mind that Nino's entire life was stolen from others. As Nino bent to pick up the paper, driver stepped out of the recess beside the front door. He was there when Nino turned. Eye to eye, neither blinked. I know you? We spoke once, driver said. Yeah, what'd we talk about? Things that matter, like how once a man makes a deal, he keeps to it. Sorry, I don't remember you. What a surprise. Perfect round hole between his eyes. Nino staggered back against the partially open front door, pushing it the rest of the way open. His legs remained on the porch. Varicose veins, like thick blue snakes, stood out on them. A slipper fell off. His toenails were thick as planks. From somewhere back inside the house, a radio issued morning traffic reports. Driver set the box with its large pepperoni double cheese, no anchovies on Nino's chest. Pizza smelled good. Nino didn't.
Yeah, and that's like the entire death of
that's the chapter.
Yeah, that's an entire chapter of this book. That is the entire chapter. And like I wouldn't say he's the main... I guess he kind of is the main antagonist, but like he's not the last person to be killed in the book.
Yeah.
Cuz like for some reason in the book, Driver has like this sort of mourning he has for the character of Bernie Rose, which I found weird when I read it. I was like, why does he give a shit?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like that is how they killed him. And the movie does not do this. I guess this is just a spoiler for the book and the movie. There's a love interest character in the movie named Irene, who is based off of a lady in the book named Irina, and she's like Mexican in the book, but she's like a white lady in the movie. And she does not die in the movie, and she plays a pretty significant like role as far as, again, because it's taking all these disconnected events from the book and making it into a single coherent structure. She dies in the book. It happens so abruptly that it makes no fucking sense. And
it's narrated similar to that death scene.
Yeah, where essentially it almost down to like the structure of it being like, except in the case of Irina's death, the first page of the chapter is him. It's like him talking to her. It's just describing their relationship of like cooking food together. And then the next page, it's like she's uncorking like a bottle, and then suddenly a bullet hole is like in her head and she is killed. And you're like, what the fuck? And it's like the cops said it was a gang-related shooting. So it's like, not only did she die, she died for no reason and from something that was not plot relevant at all. Like it was just a stray bullet from a gang shooting killed her. And then like the rest of the chapter is just describing how her son Benicio was taken away to some orphanage or something, and eventually the letters he was getting from him stopped coming, and it's like that's the end of her relevance in the book, and it's like, what the fuck? that took me by surprise when I first read it. It actually pissed me off when I first read it in like 2020, because I think the real like thing that pulls you in with the movie is the fact that he's doing all this like to save her, and it's there is like an injection of romanticism to the tragedy of the story, that both of the stories are a tragedy, but the movie had like an injection of like a romanticism to it that I liked, that is almost entirely absent from, and I mean romanticism in like the literary sense,
I mean,
and
in the literal sense too.
And literal sense too, yeah, but that is just not present in the book, and that kind of bothered me. And I
so
mentioned
for
it.
Any like card carrying objectivists that listen to this pod, you will hate this book. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I've read a couple of pages of it to Skylar, and he did not approve. He did not like it. And I kind of briefly touched upon this when I said like the first page of that chapter was him and her like cooking food, but there is an obscene amount of references to food in this book. It is like, when I started reading it a couple of years ago, I would like highlight stuff because I owned the Kindle version of the book, and so my like 3-year-old highlights are still in here. Of like, I started at like page 90, page like 80 something, and I was like, okay, anytime they mention food, I'm highlighting this shit. And so as I was reading it, it was like, 3 references to food on page 82, like 3 references to food on like page 98 or whatever, and it's like, holy shit, there's so much talk about food. And there was like 4 or 5 different times where the entire paragraph was just listing food.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the hell's going on here? Like,
yeah, there's this real like I don't know if it's incoherence, but it's definitely just
strange.
There's a lack of maybe it's like not properly integrated or whatever you would say.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like the novel's trying to be like 4 or 5 different types of novels. Like I've seen the like radical listicle thing. Like I've read part of American Psycho, which is a lot of just Patrick Bateman like listing off like fashion brands and ranting about Huey Lewis in the news and whatnot. And the book is like psychotic. Like you feel yourself going insane trying to read it, and that's kind of the point. And it's so that feels like an attempt at something specific, whereas this feels like I'm starting to realize that I actually did not like this book. It's like attempting so many different things. And you know the interesting thing about the movie, because most of the memes, like we're going to call this episode Literally Me, the Literally Me meme is from the movie, but reading aspects of the book, I mean, I get the like autism shit pretty early on. This is page 17 on my copy.
Is it the part where he says he never had much use for small talk? Because that was like ding ding ding.
No,
for me,
I don't think it was that. It's more just this interaction. I can't remember who he's talking to.
Okay.
People lived in places like where did it? Okay, I'll just start here. Heard your radio. That's how I knew you were home. Had myself a batch of cornbread all but ready to go when it came to me. I didn't have a single egg, not a one. Any chance? Sorry, there's a Korean grocer half a block up. Thanks. Think I could come inside? Come in? Driver stepped inside. I like to know my neighbors. You're probably in the wrong place for that. Wouldn't be the first time. I have a history of bad choices, a downright talent for them. Can I get you something? I think there may be a beer or 2 left in the fridge. What you'd probably call the icebox. Why would I call it that? I thought, some of that coffee I smelled would be great, actually. Driver went into the kitchen, poured 2 mugs, brought them back. Kind of a strange place to live, she said. L.A.? Here, I meant. I guess. And it's literally the like
Yeah.
green text meme of the guy that like walks into the to the classroom trying to talk like Driver, and he's in the wrong classroom.
Yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Where the teacher's like, "Are you in the right classroom?" And he like holds for like 3 counts, and is like, "I'm just here."
I'm just here.
Like.
This is the wrong class. Pauses for 3 seconds. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another funny thing from watching the like behind the scenes stuff for the movie is Refn, when he was casting, was going to cast a Latina girl to play Irene.
Yeah.
To stick with the novel, but and this is 2011, so this is like just barely pre quote unquote woke. So he recast her as a white girl.
Yeah.
And the reason he gives is kind of twofold. One, he was not attracted to any Latino women.
Yeah. I think he described her, the actress Carey Mulligan.
Carey Mulligan, who I kind of hate, except in this movie.
Yeah,
but
he described her as having a look of the kind of person you just want to protect. I think he said something along those lines. Something like that. She looks like the kind of person you just want to protect. I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so he's not having luck casting Irene, and then I think Carey Mulligan tries to get a hold of Refn because she wants to work with him. She doesn't realize he's casting a movie.
Yeah,
and so she like gets sent the script or something by like Refn's agent or something. And she's like, I really want to do this. And so she comes over to his house, auditions. Refn thinks it's going to be for like another project or something. And then I think he says what you're saying there. And then he basically cast her on the spot.
Right.
And I think that was the right choice. This is like, I don't know. Maybe it's her like, she just doesn't get the right project. But every other movie I've seen her in, I just feel nothing. Like,
damn.
Just totally annoyed by her presence.
Yeah,
but she's great in this movie.
Yeah, she's pretty good in this. I like it. And this is just like something that bothered me when reading the book. Completely unrelated to what we're talking about, but I kind of have to just say it.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue that Driver has in the book just would be really fucking weird if they adapted it into the movie. It would not fit with the way the character is presented with Ryan Gosling as Driver. There's a part where they execute a stunt in a movie, and they do it, and the other stunt driver gets out of his car, and Driver says to him something along the lines of, he's like, "Righteous man." It's like, that'd be so fucking weird if that was like in the movie. It just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And it jumped out at me at the time, and I was like, I gotta reference that. It was just funny.
Yeah, so like, I think probably wrap up the discussion of the book here because I don't really have much to say about it.
Yeah.
Like I said before, the best stuff in the book is all of the Hollywood shit.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. And it's like really cool too, like the descriptions of him nailing the stunt jobs and like talking to different writers or stuff.
Yeah,
and just then like their throwaway lines. That stuff is all great. Everything else is just doesn't hit. It's not. It's listed under mystery. I felt no mystery. I didn't feel any like cathartic end at the end of this book. I didn't really feel anything. That was the problem. I wasn't angry at it. I wasn't like.
You're like, oh,
I was
okay.
just like, oh well, the book's over, I guess. All right, time to record the episode.
I guess, yeah. It was. I kind of do want to give a bit of credit to the book, where it pretty plainly states what the theme of the story is, in a dialogue sequence, or not even dialogue. It's actually just like something that Driver thinks to himself. And it's actually in chapter 5, so it's pretty early in the book. And it's a scene where these punks are like hanging out by his car. You know the part I'm talking about? There's like these punks that are hanging out by his car, and he kind of just walks up to them, and they're like, I found it right here. Driver walked to the door and stood waiting. "Cool ride, man," one of the young toughs said, sliding off the hood. He looked up at his buddies. They all laughed. What a hoot. Driver had the keys bunched in his hand, one braced and protruding between second and third fingers. Stepping directly forward, he punched his fist at Alpha Dog's windpipe, feeling the key tear through layers of flesh, looking down as he lay gasping for air. In his rearview mirror, he watched the young tough's buddies stand over him, flapping hands and lips and trying to decide what the hell to do. It wasn't supposed to go down like this. Maybe he should turn around, go back and tell them that's what life was, a long series of things that didn't go down the way you thought they would. And that little bit right there about life being a series of things that didn't go down the way you thought they would, I think that is like pretty easy, like pretty simple encapsulation of the theme of the book, because every little disconnected event that they present in this basically ends with someone in Driver's life being horrifically maimed and dying. And him having no way to have stopped that from happening. Like Shannon, the character that was the stunt man that kind of got him into the business, dies in a stunt. Irina gets shot in the head by a stray bullet. The doctor guy that patches him up after he gets shot in the arm, like, dies in a hospital, and he like tries to get him to call his daughter for him, and she doesn't answer the phone, and then he's like, "Oh, I can try calling her again." He's like, "Don't bother." There's like tons of these moments where like everything that it kind of represents is just like things don't go the way you think they will, but instead of doing that in a way where it's and this is kind of if it were to have a plot, it would have done it this way, which is that the things don't go the way you thought they would as a result of your own actions, or as like as a result of a flaw in your action or inaction, a flaw in your character. What does it say of Driver's failure as a person that a stray bullet randomly killed the lady he liked? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
There's a lot of to use that like clip of like Trey Parker and Matt Stone thing. There's a lot of and thens that happen in the book.
That's true.
There's no and therefore. There's no cause and effect.
To kind of make it a explicit reference to Rand, which we hardly ever do on the podcast. There's a point she made. I think it might have been in the Romantic Manifesto or one of those books about art. Where she basically said, like, if you're writing something that is romantic art, you can't have your story end with like, and then the main character was hit by a meteor. And that is supposed to show like the meaninglessness of existence and how you can die at any second. It's like, that is what that stray bullet is to me, is just a meteor falling from the sky and killing you for no reason. It's like, yeah, that can happen in real life. You can get hit by a stray bullet, and it can fuck up your life and the life of everyone around you. But like, is that really the best thing to put in a book? I mean, I'm not the kind of person who would say you can't do a naturalistic story like that, but I think just as a means of like presenting a narrative, it doesn't really work. And stylistically, the book, it might be underwritten, as Skylar put it, as you had said, because there is a lot of just, and then this happened, this person's dead, they had beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, dogs, hogs, chickens, rabbits, turkeys, you name it. And
actually, the scene you read out there of the thing with the key, I think that was like the one death scene that I felt something.
I don't think that guy died, unless the key went all the way into his fucking trachea or something.
The one act of violence in the movie where I actually felt something.
Yeah.
And I think what it is like the one scene that I read out is like, what's happening is like the prose equivalent of a jump cut,
right?
But it's like jumping over the impact of between flesh, really,
right?
And so I don't really know what it is, but I think just having that connection between the two characters, even though it's a violent connection that is dangerous, I think there's something about that being there that helps me connect with both characters as well. I'm not sure, but it's kind of like
you can envision that scene in your mind cinematically, like the punch to the throat, and then the very next line is him looking at them in his rearview mirror. Like you can very clearly envision that sort of scenario happening, and it is a well written sequence, but it's in a book where like every other page is just like, this is one of like the few examples I have where he just lists like a shit ton of food. It's like there'd be enough food to feed a mid-sized town. Cold cuts, various cheeses, fruit, pizza, canopies, bite-size hot dogs and barbecue sauce, donuts and sweet rolls, and Danish sandwiches, boiled eggs, chips, salsa, onion dip, granola, juices and bottled water, coffee, tea, milk, energy drinks, cookies, cakes. That's like 25 foods you just listed. Can you calm down for a second?
Yeah, I think that was him describing this like
the buffet at the movie set
or something. Yeah,
but there's also scenes where like I think I've highlighted so many of these it's hard to find them. Where it's specifically like listing a bunch of stuff. I suppose it doesn't really matter. That one was more excessive than I remembered it being. I think the second time through reading that page, I got halfway through the list of food and I was like, I get it. Like I didn't even read how many there was in the second half.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The novel is actually fairly readable, and I think the reason for that is I was just listening to Getting Lit, which was that podcast I went on a few weeks ago. They were talking about Sally Rooney, who's a millennial author, and they were saying that the big thing with short chapters is there is this kind of like trick with the reader that's like, the chapter's short, so you feel like you're making a lot of progress, and it feels like a page turner, even if it's not. So I think there's a lot of like, oh, the chapter's really short, so I'll just read the next chapter, which is how I basically got through the book.
Yeah. I did one half in one afternoon, and then the other half in another afternoon.
Yeah, and even though like I was like feeling very little about it, when, like, for example, I was reading Carrie, I think I read like half of that in one night, which is quite a bit longer than this, I think. But it was really effective. I don't know. James Sallis Drive, it's pretty short, so if you're looking for something to read, maybe you'll like it more than we did. But I think we'll move on to the movie.
Yeah. Now, the movie is a movie that I've seen probably upwards of 10 times.
About 5 for me, I think.
It's one of those movies where, like, if I have a friend that has not seen it, I'm like, dude, let's just watch Drive. They're like, okay.
Bro, he's literally me. Yeah.
So it's one of those movies where you just can introduce people to it. And
did you introduce me to it? I'm forgetting.
I'm not even sure if I did. I know I've watched it in voice chat in Discord with the fellas several times. I think there was one weekend where I watched it twice because someone had missed the first one, so I was like, "Fuck it, let's just stream it." I remember that. We just streamed it the next day,
and it's like still a banger.
Yeah, it had been a while actually since the last time I watched it. Between then and when I watched it for the podcast, so it's like, what is it really as good as I remember it? Because I remember it being pretty awesome, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh, it's just as good, if not better than how I remembered it. And there's like always new details that I catch every time I watch the movie, and it's so fucking good.
Yes.
Refn
everybody thinks about it like it's a member of like the film bro canon or whatever.
Right.
And it certainly is, whatever that means. But
Mm.
it's also just a fucking great movie, man.
Yeah,
It's so good.
It's the crazy part is like every time I watch it, I really enjoy it for like the kind of plot that happens through like the second and third you know, part of the film, of like the second and third act. But even just like this time when I watched it, the opening sequence with like just demonstrating his ability as a getaway driver, and like the music and the editing in that sequence is just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like starting it with the speech that he gives, and I think there's a version of that speech that he gives in the book that is pretty similar, and he says, I got it right here.
I think it's almost identical. I think.
Says, I drive, that's all I do. I don't sit in while you're planning the score or while you're running it down. You tell me where we start, where we're headed, where we'll be going afterward, what time of day. I don't take part, I don't know anyone, I don't carry weapons, I drive. And that version of the speech is kind of replicated later in the movie, when he's talking to Cook, who is the guy that sets up the dummy robbery. And they have that, attitude like that has to cut down something fierce on offers. And he's like, it's not attitude, it's principle. I turn down a lot more work than I take. But in the movie has a more condensed version of that in the opening scene, where he kind of just says I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes, I'm yours. Anything a minute, either side of that, and you're on your own.
On your own, like that.
So cool. It's
so cool.
I think like thematically they kind of went for like a when he's driving and when he's partaking in these heists, and he sets himself up as like the best getaway driver in town, and kind of everyone knows it, that he's the best. He's very much in control of everything. But outside of that, he's very passive, and it's kind of like the difference between a dude like arguing with people on the internet and then like that dude IRL, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like driving for criminals is his version of like arguing on Twitter, where he's the man. But then when he's just IRL, he's very timid and passive.
Instead of getaway driving, he would just be a poster.
Yeah. I think I made a tweet that was like the drive speech, but it was like about posting.
Yeah.
If you remember
that. Yeah.
Let me fucking find this shit. This is just shamelessly fucking digging up one of my old bits.
Drive is the howling mutant of getaway driving. I don't know if you follow Howling Mutant on Twitter.
I don't.
One of the great posters.
You tell me how many characters, I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes, I'm yours no matter what. Anything a minute either side of that, you're on your own. I don't join your group chat. I don't like your tweets. I post. That was the tweet. They got 4 likes.
You gotta retweet that shit.
That was February 2021 that I said that.
Oh, what a time.
Yeah, what a time.
All right, so
back to the actual movie.
Yeah. So yeah, the kind of structure of the movie is definitely not really from the book. It owes a lot to the 1978 film The Driver, a Walter Hill film,
which I have not seen, which I maybe should have. I don't
know. I mean, we're not talking about it today, but it's very similar.
Yeah,
it's more traditionally like shot than Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Drive is like any kind of like non-traditional art film or anything. It's just
it's an art director's like approach to a Hollywood film.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this is like a time period in like independent film in Hollywood where it's like, I think the budget was like $3 million or something. It's back in 2011, and the cast is like fucking bangers, like Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan,
Bryan Cranston, like in the
Bryan
middle
Cranston,
of Breaking Bad fame, like at the height of
Ron
Breaking Bad fame.
Perlman,
Yeah.
like right when Hellboy is really popular.
And I guess on a lower note, a low key note, Oscar Isaac pre Coen Brothers, and pre Star Wars, because he did Inside Llewyn Davis, I think is the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I watched that.
Also Albert Brooks, who I think is like a comedic actor generally.
Well, yeah, he's also in Taxi Driver, which I think is why he's cast in the movie. He plays the guy at the Palatine office that kind of playfully flirts with the girl that Travis likes.
Right.
He's a lot younger there, obviously, because that was the 70s.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and he's like cucked by De Niro.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why he's in this, is just to make a reference to to Taxi Driver. He also has no eyebrows in this movie, which is fucking weird. He just has no eyebrows.
Yeah. And he's like fucking brutal in this movie, man.
Yeah.
Kind of going through the general plot outline here. Not like a summary or anything. Has anyone like not seen Drive that's listening to this? I don't know.
I think Drive is one of those things where like it's such a meme on the internet that I think just by virtue of the video being titled literally me, we might just get like straggler viewers into this that are like, of course we've fucking seen Drive, are you retarded? Like yeah.
It was 15. The budget was 15 million.
15 million.
That's more of a like. This is like, I guess, the last gasp of like mid-budget adult movies, not like, adult movies for adults.
Right. Yeah. It like you said, it takes the plot of the book, or the events that happen in the book that are disconnected, and connects them into what is essentially a singular heist, as opposed to the book where he befriends, or he kind of involves himself with Irina, and Standard is her... I don't even know if he's her husband in the book. I think he's just the father of her child in the book. While in the movie, it's like he's explicitly her husband that was in jail.
Right.
And there's kind of a scene in the book where him and Standard are just drinking beer and watching something, and Standard refers to... he says something like, if any other man were to get close to my girl as you have, I would have, fucked them up or whatever. And Driver just kind of says like, she's not your girl, which is like the only real moment in the book where he kind of has like a cold line where it's just like, she's not your girl. But then like that really only serves a purpose for the flashback scenes where he's working as a getaway driver for Standard, and Standard gets killed. But the heist where he gets killed in the book is not the same one that happens in the movie, which is like a big setup for like this like $1 million heist that they weren't aware it was going to be $1 million and all that other crazy shit. So it just makes the movie, like the plot, make more sense. It's easier to follow.
Like I've actually been reading the Romantic Manifesto recently.
Yeah.
To put it in that kind of Rand term, it actually takes the disconnected events of the book, the important ones, and connects them in a I think you had mentioned this as well, I can't remember exactly the wording she uses, but
an integrated whole
plot. Well, there's that, but her like specific definition of plot, where it's like a sequence of events that follow like a logical sequence of events presented, or something like that. I can't remember. Exactly the wording, but it turns the lack of a plot, takes away the non-plot, and makes it a plot. Not plot a lot there.
You really can't give enough credit to the screenplay for this, because again, these are all stories that are pretty much completely disconnected. Most of the characters in the book never meet each other. The only thing they have in common is that at some point they knew Driver in his life. But the way the book does, or the way the movie does it rather, is there's so much interpersonal connection with all of the characters that were originally completely disconnected that it's actually kind of genius. Like Shannon being a stunt driver is turned into Shannon being a guy that works in Hollywood that owns a garage that makes the cars for stunt scenes. And he knows Bernie Rose and Nino, which was not the case in the book. And it was like Bernie Rose is also kind of, he used to be in movies, but now he's mainly just like a criminal associate of Nino's. And it's like there's this whole subplot of like Driver working for Shannon, and he wants to borrow money from Bernie to buy like a stock car for racing. And it's like he's got the key to it all because he's got the driver that'll be like able to beat anyone. And so it's like Driver knows who Bernie and Nino are before any of this crazy heist shit goes down. And Standard, being someone that he does heists for, he owes money to these guys that was a protection money for when he was in prison. And it's like those guys were being set up for the dummy robbery by Nino. None of this happens in the book. So it's just like taking all these disconnected things and making the most genius connected plot out of it. And it's not even like it's a super complex plot, but the fact that it wouldn't be that, impressive if you had built it from the ground up. But the fact that you're adapting a story that was relatively disconnected events and you're able to kind of look at those events and make connections that weren't there before, I think there's something impressive about that.
Yeah, it's a real feat of using cause and effect to craft a story.
Yeah.
And then it gets into Refn coming into the project. I don't think he was the first director attached. I think there was someone else that was going to direct it.
Yeah, and Ryan Gosling.
Neil Marshall. It was Neil Marshall was going to direct it, who directed a really bad movie called Centurion that I hated and turned off after 30 minutes. He directed a really bad remake of Hellboy, so he's 0 for 2 for me. I think he directed this horror movie called The Descent that's supposed to be pretty good. He's an Australian guy, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was planned to star Hugh Jackman.
Yeah,
that would have been a movie.
I think I told you this a couple days ago as well, but like the reason Refn is even the director of this is because of Ryan Gosling. Like they let him pick who was going to direct the movie, and Gosling probably was just like, I don't know what Refn movies he had seen. Probably the Pusher trilogy, if I had to guess. Maybe Bronson, because Bronson was pretty fantastic as well.
Kind of a hit, yeah.
And he picked Refn because of that. And if you watch the press kind of tour that Refn and Gosling did, I think it might just be that Ryan Gosling has like he forms bromances with every fucking person he makes a movie with.
Yeah.
Where like him and Refn are going around doing these interviews and they're just being silly, and it's like you can tell they kind of bonded as they made the movie. It's similar to the Blade Runner 2049 interviews that he did with Harrison Ford, where they're essentially just goofing off. There's one where like this black lady in like the UK is interviewing them, and they're like pouring.
Harrison Ford's having none of it.
They're pouring like alcohol into these glasses, and he's like making jokes about like getting hammered. She's like, "Oh, am I doing that bad?" It's
and Harrison Ford is like, and they asked me to do the second Blade Runner movie, and he's like, "You know what I said next? Show me the money.
Show me the money." The best part is when he gets the lady to admit she had never seen Blade Runner, and then they all just start laughing their asses off.
There was like a lot of connections drawn, like one, the character of Driver, to characters played by like Steve McQueen and Bullet and Clint Eastwood with The Man with No Name.
Yeah.
And how like Steve McQueen would select a director, like he selected Peter Yates for Bullet.
Right.
I think there was another one. where like they selected Sam Peckinpah or something, and um, and Gosling basically did the same thing with Refn. And there's like a bunch of stories about that coming together. And there's a really great, pretty short video from that video essay channel, like the OG video essay guy, Every Frame a Painting,
Yeah.
which is about Drive. It's really short. Probably link it in the video. It's really great, like description of screen geography and blocking and how really quite simple the movie is, and why this is kind of why it's so effective. It's just a very simple um, uh, cause and effect story told really well, and it doesn't fall into like the trappings of minimalism that the book does, but
Yeah.
it
And Refn,
uses
especially in
minimalism
dialogue, Refn
effectively.
is very minimalist.
Yeah,
Like coming off of Bronson, which I think has quite a bit more dialogue than most of his other movies. I guess maybe unless you're counting Pusher, which there's a lot of talking in Pusher.
yeah. And there's Valhalla Rising, which has like no talking.
Yeah, that movie has like 80 lines of dialogue throughout the entire film. It's
Yeah,
it's insane, and I'm here for it because I really liked that movie. Uh,
yeah.
but Drive, it's more like it's actually kind of interesting, the connection you feel between Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan is it is effective because of almost entirely facial expressions and almost nothing to do with the actual dialogue. Because
Yeah.
Driver doesn't really have any moment where like he professes anything to her. It's just kind of all implied. And
Yeah, and even like I was talking in that video, like it's facial expressions, but it's also like hand gestures
yeah,
and like the body like posture. It's a lot of really pulling out all of the stops of like when you don't have all of the big crazy shit in a like all out action movie. But there is some great action in this movie, but the decision Refn makes to shoot it is he keeps most of the stuff, especially early on, in the car. So you're just with Driver pretty much throughout, like especially that opening scene,
yes,
which is not typical of this kind of movie. They would usually like kind of cover it traditionally, but keeping us in the car with not Refn, with a Driver
yeah,
is it's really effective for this. And there's that great shot at the end, kind of the climax of the movie, not the climax, like right after the heist gone wrong, when they're being the car chase,
yeah,
which is shot a little bit more traditionally. But there is this one great shot of the chasing car in the background, and you
wiping
see the
out.
rear view mirror, and you just see it in the rear view mirror of the car wiping out. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool sequence where you've got like the camera pointing out the back window of the car, and you just have Christina Hendricks' character like
Yeah,
she doesn't even realize that the car that's chasing them is crashing. She's just freaking out because like they're driving really fast, and
yeah,
the car is just wiping out in the background. Very cool sequence. Um, the violence in the movie is very brief, but
yeah,
it's I don't want to say like ultra realistic. It's more like it's like a heightened stylized reality that is very
yeah,
gruesome.
yeah,
The scene where they're in the motel room after the heist gone wrong, and she and Blanche had called Cook to kind of come and get them, and she didn't realize that they were going to kill her too. She's like standing in the bathroom, and the guy with the shotgun, points the shotgun through the window and just blows her fucking head off.
yeah.
Which is how they open the book. Is like her head having already been blown off, and
Yes,
that is
yeah,
like one of the few sections of the book where it's like, holy shit, this is really fucking fantastic. Like
yeah,
just the whole sequence where he's describing like he hears a noise and he doesn't know what it is, but it's actually just like his arm like tapping on the ground because he got shot in the arm and like the nerves, his arm is like spasming.
Oh yeah.
Very cool. Uh, but apparently when this movie was being advertised when it came out, they kind of did the Hollywood trailer thing of showing every little bit of action out of context. Yeah. So the movie looked like it was going to be this action-packed, kind of like, maybe not Fast and Furious, but like in the same vein of like that intensity of action, when it really isn't. Yeah. It's a very like slow, methodical story with like explosions of insane action when it does happen. And
yeah, it's much more 70s.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah, that's actually a good comparison.
Yeah, and when he was alive, Friedkin was a big comparison to Refn.
Right.
I think this is the key movie to think about with that. A lot of similarities, I think, to Live and Die in L.A.
Right.
You know, very different movies.
This has nothing to do with Drive, but when I was watching Drive, and you had kind of made the 70s comparison there, for some, I don't even remember why I thought of it, but it made me think of the scene with Tommy Lee Jones in that fucking, what the hell, what was that movie we watched for the podcast? That was 80s, not 70s. Rolling Thunder, yeah. And it's the scene at the end of the movie where they're just like, he says to the prostitute, he's like, we're gonna fucking kill some people or whatever. Yeah. Like, there's no moment in the movie where Driver has any sort of like cool dialogue, except for like when he's saying his rehearsed speech that he gives to everyone. Yeah. And even the scene where he gets Cook to call Nino so he can come and get his money and leave him the fuck alone because he wants nothing to do with it. And Nino gets on the phone and he kind of tells him like, you know, I have your money. And he goes like, what, do you expect me to buy back my own shit? And he's like, no, I'm gonna give you a time and a place and you're gonna come and get it. And he's like, well, what do you get out of it? And he goes, just that out of it. And it's like that's I guess that's like a pretty cool, you know, character line.
Turn of phrase here.
But most of the time he's very just like, especially around Irene, he literally there are scenes where when she takes her car to the garage where he works to get repaired, and it's apparent from the way that him and Irene are looking at each other, and that Bryan Cranston's character's like, oh, you two know each other, and then he just goes, don't, and he like walks away like he's shy.
Yeah.
It's just like this weird contrast of like this dude who's shy around women who's like the greatest getaway driver in fucking history.
Yeah. The other kind of funny thing about that is, and this is in both the movie and the book.
Yeah.
The how it's become like an incel pride movie or whatever. And yeah. The thing is, Driver may be an incel, but he's like actually good at something.
Right. He actually has he actually has like marketable skills. Yeah.
Whereas the typical like anon like right-wing Twitter account is like
they post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I mean, if you want to have your like statue Abby talking about fucking degeneracy or whatever, but you can't complete a task, I don't know what to tell you.
I guess to kind of pivot a bit, another thing, you describe the movie as very simple in its execution of things, and that's why it's effective. Another kind of element of that is the way that it uses its music, where a lot of the songs that are used throughout the movie, the lyrics of the songs blatantly apply to the context of the scene and illustrate kind of the internal thoughts of the character at the time. Like the scene where Standard returns from prison and Irene is sitting in the hallway alone and Driver is alone in his apartment, and the song that's playing is it says, "I don't eat, I don't sleep, I do nothing but think of you," and I think the song is like, "You keep me under your spell," is like the chorus of the song.
Yeah.
And it's like very obvious, and I'm pretty sure that's even, what's the word, diegetic? Is that the term? It's like it's being played in universe. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
It's being played like at the party where Standard is being welcomed back, but it's like also just being used to apply to the like internal thoughts of the characters. The Real Human Being song, that classic one.
The anthem of the incels and volcels.
It has an aesthetic, and I really like it, and it works.
Yeah, it's I see. I'm like a real Refn head, so like I go for like the real like dumb retarded like shit, like the Neon Demon.
Oh yeah,
like I love that shit. But
right.
I mean, I really don't think there's anything that like tops Drive. We do need to like at some point actually finish Too Old to Die Young.
Right.
We keep threatening to do it and then like watch one episode and stop.
And you're like, all right, that's enough of that.
90 minutes long.
Yeah. Christina Hendricks is in Neon Demon, so she worked with Refn a couple times. I think she might have even been in something else he did.
Yeah. And Gosling was in Only God Forgives.
Right.
Well, right after
he needs to partner up with Ryan Gosling again for another project, because they worked really well together.
Barbie 2, actually.
Refn's gonna direct Barbie 2.
Please? No way that's not a masterpiece if that happens.
He wears the Drive jacket in Barbie 2, and they play fucking Night Call, or whatever the song is called that plays at the beginning of Drive.
Yeah.
But he's just driving around in like the fucking Barbie mobile or whatever.
They do a dance number to Real Hero.
Ron Perlman shows up, sees the Barbie mobile, and says, "That's one fine ass pussy mobile, motherfucker." You remember that line?
Yes, I do.
It's such a psychotic line, and such a fucking crazy delivery from Ron Perlman when he says it too.
Yeah. Ron Perlman, like Stephen King, is a guy who's really talented, but then he started fucking tweeting.
Yeah.
And then it's just like he always tweeting about like
Donald Trump and Republicans in general.
Like prison raping Donnie Trump or whatever.
His tweets are easily like 30 times more psychotic than Stephen King's about Donald Trump. There was a meme that Mox and I, shout out to a friend of the pod, Mox, where Ron Perlman plays a character in Payday 2, and like the character, every line of dialogue that he has in that game, there's like a meme in the Payday community that every other word out of his character's mouth is just fuck. So it's just like all his lines, like you're playing the game and it's just like get fucked, taser fuck, like it's just like every other line is just that. And we were joking about how he's always tweeting about tweeting about Donald Trump, and it's like he says weird shit. He's like, "Oh, you poop your pants, poopy Donnie." It's like there's a Donald Trump mask in Payday 2, and in Payday 2, I would play as Ron Perlman's character with a Donald Trump mask on, and I just called him Poopy Donnie. As a reference to Ron Perlman being a fucking psychopath on Twitter. He also would tweet very weird threats at people. He'd be like, "Hey, people can burn your house down, Jeff Bezos," or whatever. It's like, the fuck? You're so weird. Jesus. Calm down.
Psycho.
He is. He legitimately will tweet like threats of like burning people's houses down. It's like, dude, you're like a millionaire celebrity. Shut up.
He like that Donald Trump mask is it's got to be like the stunt mask that Driver puts on to kill Nino in the movie.
Oh yeah. It's like a political cartoonist's, like, those kind of. It's supposed to be like an homage to, because Payday is like a heist game, so it's like it's an homage to what's that heist movie called with Patrick Swayze in it? Point Break, where they wear the president masks when they rob banks. Oh yeah. But it's like a political cartoonist version of Donald Trump, where he's got like a huge like quadruple chin and like a tiny face. Ugh, awful.
Poopy Donnie.
Yeah. Alt title for the pod? Nah.
No.
Literally
me, or Poopy Donnie.
Someone has to fucking watch 1 hour and 10 minutes of this podcast to figure out what the fuck Poopy Donnie means. We're not doing that. No. There's
the other fucking crazy scene is when Bernie kills Shannon.
Yes.
That scene always like disturbs me to no end. He like
takes the straight razor, right?
Yeah, Shannon's trying to get out of town because they figure out that the information is going to get back to Shannon and he's going to get killed, which he does. Because Bernie is the Alfred Brooks character, meets him up at his shop, and he just like is gonna shake his hand, telling him to get out of town or whatever. And he shakes his hand, twists it really quick to the right, and then just slits it with a shaving razor.
Yeah, from like elbow to wrist, like just like a huge gash down his arm.
Yeah, it's kind of like this scene in the movie The Rules of Attraction, where one of the girls kills herself.
Right.
Shows her taking like a razor, and I think the shot was actually cut down for an R rating. But it's like her taking one of those like square razors.
Oh yeah,
cutting in the same place. This one's much quicker though, and then he's like, he says something like, "It's over. It's done. It's done. There's no pain. That's it. Everything's fine."
Yeah, it's like this weird, like calming, like I've just murdered you. You're dead. You know, it's over. You know? Very creepy. And then the next scene is him like going home and washing off the knife and then putting it in a display case with other knives that he presumably has murdered people with. Very crazy. Like you really get an impression of how psychotic this guy is underneath his like general, like he's not even really, he's more stoic most of the time, except for when he's dealing with Nino, who he's kind of done with his shit by the end of the movie. And there's kind of this is one of those movies I could talk about forever, and it's always unorganized and disconnected because I just think of things that I remember randomly. But like the scene where he gets away from the car that was chasing them after the setup heist, you see that car crash, but they don't show you who was driving it. And they don't tell you who was driving it, but you know who was driving it because in the next scene, when he goes to find Cook and he smashes his hand with a hammer, his other hand is all fucked up and in like a cast and stuff. So it's like he was in the car that crashed and he fucked up his hand, and then driver came in with a hammer and fucked up his other hand. And then the next scene you see that guy is he's in Nino's pizzeria struggling to eat a piece of pizza with both of his hands fucked up. And then Albert Brooks stabs him in the eye with a fork and then takes a knife and stabs him in the neck like 4 times. He's just screaming.
The eye thing was weird. Like, it's like, you were gonna stab him in the neck 4 times. Why did you stab him in the eye?
I have no idea. I think he blatantly murdered him in the front of the pizzeria, and then he's just like, "There, now you have to clean up my mess," because it's like, you know, Nino kind of goes to Bernie to clean up the mess of this whole dummy robbery being fucked up by a driver who turns out is not just good at driving, but at also fucking shooting people. And like, it's funny because there's no indication that he's ever killed anyone before. But in the scene when the 2 guys burst into the motel room, he like grabs a rod off of the shower curtain thing and stabs the guy in the neck. And then very quickly takes that shotgun and shoots the other guy. And you're like, oh, damn.
I think there's a line in the book where someone asks Driver if he's seen combat or something. I can't remember exactly where, but there is I think there's some kind of like ambiguity over whether he's like a veteran or maybe it's just because he's a criminal and he has experience doing it.
Maybe.
But
yeah, I don't think there was any such indication in the movie though. I just think
I don't think so.
There's a lot of like analysis of the movie that I don't know if I even necessarily agree with. Where like by the end of the movie, when he goes to confront Nino at the pizzeria and he puts on the rubber mask that he wore during the stuntman stuff, there's like this sort of like psychologizing stuff. If I don't know if you've read any of that stuff, where it's like, oh, he's losing his connection to reality, and he's wearing the mask he wears as a stunt driver because he's treating reality like a movie. It's like I don't even know if that's necessarily true. I think it just looks fucking cool.
Yeah, no, that's gay.
I think Refn was like, wouldn't it be cool if he wore the mask when he went to confront Nino?
Yeah, no. I think he's just hiding his identity because
right, because if he walked right, the problem is hiding your identity while wearing your fucking superhero outfit, which is what the white jacket with the scorpion on it is, a superhero outfit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is basically a direct quote from Refn, where he said that Drive was the greatest superhero movie ever made.
Yeah,
and I don't think I think I agree with that.
based actually.
Yeah. That whole sequence is great with the mask and
yeah,
just 1,000 times better than. And then there was a perfectly round hole in the center of Nino's head. It was like,
yeah.
He like kind of follows his car and then smashes into the side of it. It's like pitch black outside, and he's on the beach, and the only light that illuminates the driver is from the lighthouse, and it's like just half of his face is illuminated for just a fraction of a second, and it's Kino, as they say.
Yeah. The that thing you were talking about, that kind of like psychologizing take, I think that's just this type of like kind of like we talk about day one objectivism. This is like day one cinephilia,
right?
Where you think that a movie has to have like some deeper sub meaning for it to be like good,
right?
And it's not. It's just a good story with a very tight and well constructed plot that follows a logical conclusion and has cause and effect.
Yeah.
Done really well by a great artist.
Yeah. It's always interesting when you like make an integration about something that is relatively straightforward and you're like, oh yeah, this connection's obvious. And then you look at like what people like are criticizing and like saying about the movie, and they're saying all this other bullshit that's like nothing to do with the movie, and you're like, how did they miss this thing that I thought of here? But they're like thinking of like, oh, he was disconnected from the reality and he wore the mask as a symbol of him, treating life like a movie. It's like, get out of here.
Shut up, nerd.
Yeah.
It's another similar thing to that is fuck, I just lost my train of thought.
Shit.
I think it's gone. Damn.
That is tragic.
I was going to say there.
There are I mean, does it really need to be said, the whole like meme of the scorpion jacket? It was funny the other day. We were like, okay, we're going to do Drive for the podcast, and then a like tweet from Hideo Kojima from like 2012 started like doing the rounds, and it was just him tweeting like, need the scorpion jacket from Drive.
Yeah.
And where the fuck is it? I need to find that tweet. It was so good. He
you should make that the thumbnail.
The thumbnail is just Kojima's tweet about needing the jacket from Drive.
Yeah.
Want scorpion stitched souvenir jacket that Ryan Gosling was wearing in movie Drive. That's the tweet. He tweeted that January 2012.
Different time on Twitter.
Yeah. You could write detailed instructions on how to make crack in the microwave back then.
And Bret Easton Ellis could attempt to drunk text his coke dealer and actually tweets it out.
Yeah. Fantastic.
do we have anything else we want to say?
I mean, I'm sure if I think long enough, I could probably come up with more things that I have to say about Drive. But in the name of not rambling forever, I don't think I have much else to say.
Yeah, I think Drive's kind of a big one, at least for like how you and I became friends over like bonding over different movies that we like,
Right.
watching at different times in the VC with the boys and whatnot. So it's got that kind of emotional connection for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
But even outside of that, it's just such a good movie.
Yeah. If anyone were to watch like any movie from Refn's filmography, I would say to watch Drive.
Yeah.
And if you like more experimental films, because Drive is a pretty straightforward one, but if you like more experimental films, also watch Bronson and Only God Forgives, and I suppose Neon Demon as well. I think I want to rewatch Only God Forgives. Because like
I think I do too.
I think Only God Forgives is like a visual step up from Drive, but like Drive is just like the complete package of film.
Yeah.
That
Drive.
Watch it.
I think I said this on this Letterboxd review I wrote about it. Was Drive is kind of the perfect encapsulation of all the best parts of Refn's early career and all the best parts of his later career.
Yeah.
His early career is just these like really like taut and gritty crime dramas, and his later career are these like kind of lush, colorful, visually stunning, kind of tone poems or whatever. And Drive is like the smack dab in the center of that.
It certainly is.
Yeah, I mean, that's Drive. And that kind of marks the end of Noirvember for us. We're going to be back next week. Little looking at ahead here is we're going to be off the week of Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll do 3 episodes in December, and then we'll be off for a week, and we'll be back for the new year after that.
Yeah, so we'll be doing episodes that'll come out on the 4th, 11th, and 18th, and then skipping the 25th. We might have one up on New Year's, I don't know. Maybe a day or two after that, so it might be in the middle of a week, just depending on what the schedules are and stuff.
Yeah.
I usually have a lot of family shit going on like that entire week after, and like a little bit before Christmas anyway. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking mostly some comedies next month to kind of round out the genres at the end of the year. We did horror and then noir and just kind of rounded out with some comedy to end out the year.
Yeah.
And I think, when did we start doing the podcast? Was back in March or something?
Oh, Jesus. When the hell did we start? I know it was after. It was definitely after Christmas.
Yeah.
First episode.
I'm just wondering when we.
On February 20th. So.
February. Oh wow, that's coming up. Okay.
Yeah, February. I guess on February 19th is an upload date next year. So that'll be the day before the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Will be February 19th.
Yeah. So yeah,
that'll be neat.
That's coming up. Not sure what we're doing for that, if anything.
No idea.
But yeah, thanks for joining. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz on the YouTube channel. Leave us a review on Spotify and Apple. Hopefully 5 stars. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Whoever left the 2 reviews on Spotify, leave a couple other fucking reviews on Apple, please.
Damn.
No offense.
Yeah, leave us some more fucking reviews.
Be grateful for this content I'm putting out for you.
We would really fucking appreciate it.
it would be a fine ass fucking pussy mobile, motherfucker, or whatever.
Jesus
But yeah,
Christ. Oh,
do all that shit,
yeah.
and we'll be back next week. Do you have something else?
No, you said fine ass pussy mobile, motherfucker, and it immediately made me remember that in both the book and the movie, Bernie Rose really liked Chinese food.
On that note,
and on that note, see you next time.
See you next time.